The mockery of giants, the Zalathi Dominion controlled 300 star systems, and their supreme commander Zarek never let anyone forget it. For 8 millennia, they had built their empire on the broken dreams of lesser civilizations, their crystalline warships cutting through space like diamonds through glass. Their technology was art, their warfare was poetry, and their contempt for other species was absolute. When the survey probe first detected radio signals from a small blue planet in the Orion Arm, the discovery barely warranted a footnote in the Dominion's vast archives. Earth, as the inhabitants called their world, was producing primitive electromagnetic broadcasts that the Zalathi had abandoned thousands of years ago. The initial assessment was swift and dismissive. Another backward species barely worth cataloging. Ambassador Krell stood before the Grand Assembly, his forearms crossed in the traditional gesture of superiority. The holographic display behind him showed Earth in all its apparent insignificance. The planet's single moon, its modest orbital stations, its fumbling attempts at fusion power, the assembly hall filled with the clicking sounds of Zalathi laughter, a noise that resembled breaking glass. "They call themselves humanity," Krell announced, his voice dripping with amusement. "They have achieved basic spaceflight, established a few mining colonies on nearby asteroids, and they actually believe this makes them ready for the galactic community." More clicking laughter echoed through the chamber. "They sent us a message of peace, offering trade agreements and cultural exchange. They want to be our friends." The Grand Assembly erupted in genuine mirth. Supreme Commander Zarek himself rose from his throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the crystalline floor. Standing 12 feet tall with skin that shifted colors, like oil on water, he was the perfect embodiment of Zalathi superiority. His voice resonated through the chamber like thunder. "Friends? These creatures who have barely left their gravity well wish to be friends with the Zalathi Dominion?" Zarek's 6 eyes gleamed with predatory interest. "Perhaps we should educate them on their proper place in the galaxy. A demonstration of true power might save them from delusions of grandeur." The decision was unanimous. The Zalathi would send a diplomatic fleet to Earth, not for destruction, but for humiliation. They would demonstrate the vast gulf between a true galactic power and a species that still burned chemical rockets. It would be a lesson in humility, recorded for posterity and broadcast across the Dominion's networks as entertainment. On Earth, in a bunker 5 miles beneath the Antarctic ice, Admiral Victoria Voss watched the Zalathi fleet movements on her quantum-encrypted displays. She was a small woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much, but her mind was sharper than any blade. Around her, dozens of operators worked in perfect silence, monitoring feeds from sensors that the Zalathi couldn't even theoretically detect. "They're taking the bait," her second-in-command Colonel Martinez whispered beside her. "Exactly as the predictive model suggested. Their arrogance is beautifully consistent." Voss nodded slowly. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for 15 years, ever since their deep space listeners had first detected Zalathi transmissions. They had studied every battle, analyzed every victory, understood every weakness hidden beneath the Dominion's overwhelming strength. While sending messages of peace and friendship, Earth's best minds had been working on something the galaxy had never seen. The Zalathi fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system with deliberate ceremony. 500 vessels arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that could deflect supernovas. Commander Thresh, leading the fleet from his flagship, sent a message to Earth on all frequencies. "Humans of Earth, the Zalathi Dominion graces you with its presence. You have 1 rotation of your planet to surrender your defensive systems and prepare a proper welcome for your superiors. Failure to comply will result in a demonstration you will find most educational." The response from Earth was polite, almost apologetic. A young diplomat appeared on the communication screen, his face carefully neutral. "Honored Zalathi, we are grateful for your visit. However, we must respectfully decline your terms. Earth stands ready to defend itself if necessary, though we still hope for peaceful resolution." The clicking laughter from the Zalathi bridge was deafening. Thresh turned to his weapons officer. "Target their orbital defense platforms. Use minimal power." We want them functional enough to understand their helplessness. The first barrage lit up space like a new sun. Energy beams that could crack moons lanced toward Earth's defensive satellites. The humans' shields held for exactly 3 seconds before failing, their platforms vaporizing in brilliant flashes. The Zalathi moved forward, systematic and unhurried, dismantling humanity's outer defenses like a child pulling apart a toy. But Admiral Voss wasn't watching the destruction. She was watching her quantum resonance scanners, waiting for the exact moment when the Zalathi fleet reached the predetermined coordinates. The enemy moved forward with perfect arrogance, exactly as 15 years of study had predicted they would. Phase 1 complete, an operator reported. Zalathi fleet has entered the trap zone. All quantum anchors are locked. Voss stood up, her voice cutting through the bunker like a blade. 15 years we've waited. 15 years we've prepared. They want to teach us about power? Let's show them what humanity learned while they were laughing. She turned to Martinez. Execute Prometheus Protocol. The space around the Zalathi fleet began to shimmer. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable on their sensors, dismissed as background radiation from Sol, but then their navigation systems started reporting impossible readings. Stars were in the wrong positions, gravity waves that shouldn't exist, pulled at their hulls. Their faster-than-light communications with the Dominion cut off as if sliced by an invisible knife. Commander Thresh felt the first touch of unease. What is happening? Run full diagnostics on all systems. Commander, his sensor officer's voice carried a note of confusion. I'm detecting quantum fluctuations throughout local space. The patterns are... This shouldn't be possible. The energy requirements alone would need a power source the size of a small star. The shimmer in space grew stronger, and then reality itself seemed to tear. Ships appeared out of nowhere, not dropping from hyperspace or emerging from behind, cloaking fields, but literally stepping out of folded space-time. Human vessels, but nothing like the primitive craft the Zalathi had expected. These ships were smooth and dark, their hulls seeming to bend light around them, their very presence causing space to ripple. Captain Jennifer Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's first quantum phase battleship. Through her neural interface, she could feel the ship's quantum core humming with power drawn directly from vacuum energy, a technology that shouldn't exist for another 1,000 years by Zalathi estimates. Around her, 200 similar vessels materialized, each one a masterpiece of human ingenuity and desperate determination. All ships, this is Admiral Voss. The communication came through quantum entanglement, instantaneous and unhackable. Remember your training, they're stronger but we're smarter. Execute Strike Pattern Alpha. Show them why you don't corner a species with nothing to lose. The human ships didn't move through space. They folded it, stepping from one location to another in movements that violated everything the Zalathi knew about physics. One moment empty space, the next a human vessel inside their shields, weapons firing at point-blank range into critical systems. The Zalathi's mighty barriers, designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic strikes, were useless against enemies that simply appeared inside them. The quantum revelation. The Zalathi flagship's bridge erupted in chaos as human vessels materialized within their own formation, firing weapons that seemed to ignore conventional physics. Plasma bolts that phased through shields, kinetic rounds that struck from impossible angles, and most terrifying of all, targeted EMP bursts that selectively disabled specific systems while leaving others untouched. Commander Thresh watched in horror as his tactical display became a nightmare of red warning symbols. Ships throughout his fleet reported critical hits to weapon systems, engines, and communication arrays, but minimal casualties. The humans weren't trying to destroy them. They were performing surgical strikes with precision that should have been impossible. How? Thresh demanded, his forearms gesturing wildly at the chaos outside. How are they doing this? Our intelligence said they barely had fusion power. His science officer, a younger Zalathi named Varix, was frantically analyzing the sensor data. Commander, these readings, they're using quantum entanglement for real-time coordination. Every human ship knows what every other ship is doing instantaneously. And their propulsion. They're not moving through space, they're folding it around themselves. The power requirements, by the ancestors, they must be tapping into zero-point energy. Captain Chen monitored the battle from her neural interface. Her consciousness merged with the Prometheus's quantum computer. She could feel the ebb and flow of the engagement, each human ship a note in a deadly symphony she conducted. The Zalathi were responding now, their superior firepower lashing out in all directions. But they were fighting shadows. Every time they locked onto a human vessel, it simply stepped sideways through folded space, appearing somewhere else entirely. Team 7, disable their command ship's primary reactor, she ordered through the quantum link. Team 3, their supply vessels are trying to retreat. Cut them off. Remember, we want them alive but helpless. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities was spreading through the Zalathi fleet like wildfire. These weren't the primitive creatures they had mocked. This was a species that had taken a different path, one that focused on understanding the fundamental nature of reality rather than building bigger guns. While the Zalathi had spent millennia perfecting conventional warfare, humanity had spent 15 years breaking the laws of physics. On Earth, Admiral Voss watched the engagement with grim satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to plan, but she knew the real test was coming. The Zalathi wouldn't accept defeat easily. Their pride wouldn't allow it. "Admiral," Colonel Martinez reported, "we're intercepting communications from their flagship. They're trying to call for reinforcements from the Dominion." "Let them try," Voss replied. "Our quantum interference field extends for 50 light-years. Nothing gets in or out unless we allow it." In the Zalathi flagship, Supreme Commander Zarek himself had taken direct control. His arrival on the bridge brought a moment of hope to the demoralized crew. Surely their legendary commander could turn the tide against these impossible enemies. "Enough games," Zarek growled, his 6 eyes blazing with fury. "All ships, prepare for Nova Protocol. We'll burn this entire system rather than suffer such humiliation." The Zalathi fleet began to reconfigure, their ships linking together in a formation that would channel their combined energy into a single devastating blast. It was their ultimate weapon, capable of sterilizing entire planets. The human ships immediately detected the energy buildup and began to pull back. Captain Chen felt a chill run through her neural interface. "Admiral, they're preparing a system killer. Permission to engage lethal protocols?" There was a pause before Voss responded. "Negative. Implement Contingency 7. Show them the full truth." Chen's eyes widened. Contingency 7 was their last resort, the revelation that would change everything. "Understood. All ships, execute Contingency 7. Drop the veil." The space around Earth began to shift and warp. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly filled with structures. Massive space stations, each one the size of a small moon, materialized as their quantum cloaking dropped. Shipyards that stretched for thousands of kilometers became visible, filled with thousands of vessels under construction. Defense platforms armed with weapons that drew power directly from subspace itself ringed the entire solar system. But most shocking of all was Earth itself. The planet flickered and its true nature was revealed. The entire world was encased in a quantum shield, a barrier that existed partially outside normal space-time. Cities floated in the atmosphere, held aloft by anti-grav technology. The oceans glowed with the light of underwater fusion reactors. This wasn't a primitive world. This was a fortress disguised as a backwater planet. The Zalathi fleet's sensors screamed with information overload. Where they had seen a single world with a few billion inhabitants, there were actually dozens of colonized worlds throughout the system, all hidden behind quantum veils. Where they had detected primitive radio signals, they now saw a civilization that had been watching them, studying them, preparing for them. A new transmission came through, and this time it wasn't a young diplomat. Admiral Voss herself appeared, on their screens, her weathered face stern but not unkind. "Supreme Commander Zarek, I am Admiral Victoria Voss of the United Earth Defense Force. For 15 years we have watched your dominion. We know every battle you've fought, every species you've conquered, every weakness you've hidden. We prepared for this day not because we wanted war, But because we knew your pride would never allow peace between equals, she paused, letting her words sink in. Your Nova protocol has been neutralized. Our quantum interference has already dissipated the energy buildup. Your fleet is surrounded by 3,000 vessels, each one capable of folding space itself. Your reinforcements cannot reach you. Your weapons cannot hurt us. You have lost, Commander. Zarek's 6 eyes narrowed to slits. Then destroy us and be done with it. The Zalathi do not surrender. But that's where you're wrong, Voss continued, and for the first time, she smiled. We don't want to destroy you. Despite everything, our original offer stands. Peace, trade, cultural exchange. We still want to be friends. The bridge of the Zalathi flagship fell silent. This was incomprehensible. They had come to humiliate humanity, and now in their moment of absolute defeat the humans offered friendship. You could annihilate us, Zarek said slowly. Why show mercy? Because, Captain Chen's voice joined the transmission, her ship appearing directly in front of the Zalathi flagship. Strength without mercy is just brutality. We learned something in our 15 years of preparation. We studied not just your weapons and tactics, but your history, your art, your music. The Zalathi weren't always conquerors. You were explorers once, scientists and philosophers. You've forgotten who you were in your pursuit of who you thought you should be. Admiral Voss nodded. We're offering you a choice, Supreme Commander. Return to your dominion with the truth. Tell them that humanity extends an offer of genuine alliance, not as servants or masters, but as equals. We have technologies you don't, yes, but you have knowledge we lack. Together we could be greater than either alone. And if we refuse? Zarek asked, though his voice had lost its edge. Then you leave, and we'll be waiting when you're ready. But know this, the galaxy is vast and full of wonders. There are threats out there that neither of us can face alone. We've detected signals from beyond our galaxy, Commander. Something is coming, something that makes both our fleets look like toys. We can face it together, or we can waste time with pointless conflict. The quantum interference field suddenly lifted. The Zalathi fleet's communications with the Dominion were restored. Zarek could call for the entire might of his empire to descend upon Earth. He could turn this into a war that would consume both civilizations. Instead, he did something that hadn't been done in 3,000 years of Zalathi history. He powered down his weapons. Admiral Voss, Zarek's voice carried across the void. I request permission to send a diplomatic envoy to Earth for formal negotiations. The human ships began to pull back, their weapons powering down in response. The tension that had gripped the system began to ease. Captain Chen felt tears in her eyes as she watched history being made. Permission granted, Supreme Commander, Voss replied. And Zarek, welcome to a new chapter, for all of us. As the Zalathi fleet assumed a non-threatening formation and human vessels began to escort them toward Earth, the news spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Dominion that had never known defeat had been brought to heel, not through destruction, but through preparation, intelligence, and ultimately, mercy. The other species of the galaxy, those who had lived in fear of the Zalathi for millennia, suddenly saw humanity in a new light, not as conquerors replacing the old order, but as a species that could stand against giants and still extend a hand in friendship. In the depths of space, monitoring stations from 100 different civilizations recorded every moment. The mighty Zalathi Dominion had laughed at Earth, mocked their primitive appearance, and dismissed their offers of peace. They had come to teach a lesson in power. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson in wisdom. True strength wasn't in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to. The quantum technology that Earth revealed that day would eventually be shared, lifting all civilizations to new heights. The alliance between Earth and the Zalathi would become the foundation of a new galactic order, one built on cooperation rather than conquest. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy learned never to underestimate the quiet ones, the polite ones, the ones who offered friendship first, because sometimes behind that extended hand of peace was a fist capable of reshaping reality itself, held back only by the hope that it would never need to be used. The Empire had laughed at Earth, but in the end, It was humanity who had the last word. Not a laugh of mockery, but an offer of partnership. And in that moment, the galaxy changed forever.